Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. So from this video onwards, we are starting with a new series which will be based on CSS, and this is the very first video of it and it will clear your basics about the same. So let's start with what is CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet and it is not a programming language, which means whatever code you write in CSS is in total human readable format. CSS is used to style HTML tags and hence it is widely used in web and web development technologies. Now if you want to work with CSS, let's see what is syntax for it. So entire CSS syntax basically consists of two things, that is selector and declaration box. So here you can see in the example there is a selector and declaration box. But what is selector and declaration box? So let's see what is selector first. Selector is any HTML element that you want to style. It can be heading tag, paragraph tag, etc. whatever present on your web page. And declaration box consists of property and value assigned to that property. Properties are nothing but type of HTML attribute and it can be color, font size, etc. So the last example can now make sense to you, where h1 was a selector, it was being styled, and properties were color and font size with particular value. So if you want to be a pro in CSS, you first need to understand the types of selectors which are used in CSS nowadays. There are basically 5 types and we will discuss them all in this video with the help of code. They are namely element selector, ID selector, class selector, universal selector and group selector. As I said, we will start with the coding for these 5 selectors one by one. Let's move to the coding part. So here on the screen you can see there's a HTML document which has p tag and heading tag, and its output is present on the web browser. And now we will style this to tag. So here we are first dealing with element selector. Whenever you are working with CSS, make sure you include style tag in your HTML document because your entire CSS styling part is present in between start and end style tag. And we are dealing with element selector at the same time. So element selectors allows you to select HTML element by their original name, which means I can style p tag using its original name p and heading tag with its original name h2. So I am styling p tag here. I am providing it 2 properties and with 2 different values, and I am done giving them value, and now I'll refresh the web page to check if it works. So after refreshing, you can see it works completely fine. So this is how you can style HTML elements using element selector. As we haven't used h2 anywhere while styling, h2 has not been affected and it's like original one. So now we will separately go and style the heading tag, which is h2 over here. So I am aligning its text to the center and providing it color red. And again I'll go and refresh the web page and you can see how element selector works. Simple, right? Now, second type of selector in CSS is ID selector, which we will discuss today. So ID selector, as the name suggests, in ID selector we provide various IDs to HTML elements. Like here we have 2 elements, h2 and p. I'll provide 2 different IDs to h2 and this p tag, and then I'll access them for styling using the ID. So here I have updated the content of the web page, and now I'll start by providing this h2 and p tag and ID. Point to remember is ID can never be duplicate within the web page, which means you always have to provide unique ID within the same web page. So for h2 I'll assign ID. You have to assign ID using word ID, then equals to, and then in double quotes you have to write the ID name. So here I am writing ID name as heading 1, and for p tag I'll assign ID as, let's say, para 1. Okay, and after providing these IDs, while styling in style tag we will use ID. So syntax for accessing ID is you first write hash and then you write ID name. So I am styling heading tag first, so I'll write hash and then heading 1. So whichever HTML element has this ID, which is heading 1, will be applied with these properties which I am writing right now. So I'm assigning properties like text align center and color as blue. And now I'll go and refresh the web page and see it works. So any HTML element which was assigned with this ID would have been affected with these properties. Now if I want to style p tag, I had to use its ID, which is para1, and I had to assign properties to para1, and then the p tag will be affected. So again I'm writing hash, then ID name, which is para1, and I'm writing text align as center and color, let's say brown. So yeah, brown color, and I'll again go and refresh the web page. So you can see text has been aligned to the center with color blue and brown respectively. So this is how ID selector works. If you don't know the color name, you can go and choose color from color picker as well, which is provided in text editor. And this is how ID selector works. Now the third type of CSS selector that we are going to discuss today is CSS class selector, and as the name suggests, CSS class selectors uses class name. So here we first assign class name to particular HTML tag, and then that tag is affected with the properties defined in the class. So here I have updated the content of the web page according to the class selector, and now I will start with the styling part, for which I'll first need to assign class name. So let's start with the heading tag. So we will assign class name using word class is equals to, then in double quotes write the class name. So here I am writing class name as design. So now heading tag has a class design. To access the class in style tag, that is in heading tag, that is in head tag, to assign the properties, you'll need to use dot operator and then class name. So here I have used dot design, and now I'll define the properties which will be assigned to the class design. So it is text align at center. We'll keep it simple and check if it works. And yes, the content of the heading tag is affected, which is CSS class selector has aligned to the center. Now if I want to move the content of p tag to the center, I'll assign the p tag class as design. So as we did for the heading tag, we will do same for the p tag. So class is equals to, then in double quotes, design. And now p tag is also part of class design, and it will be affected as well. So as you can see, both the content or both the stuff is aligned to the center. So this is how class selector works. Let's assign color property as well. So color is equals to red, and refresh the web page, and you can see the color is red now. So this is how CSS class selector works. Moving towards the next selector in CSS, which is CSS universal selector. So as the name suggests, this selector is universal, which means it will remain constant throughout the web page, which also means whatever properties you assign are applied to the each and every HTML tag present on the web page. So here I have updated the content of the web page, and now I will start with the styling. If you are working with universal selector, make sure to use asterisk as a selector, which is star. So whenever you define the properties, write star, and then in curly braces write the properties. So here I have wrote star, or I have typed star, and I'm giving properties like text alignment as center, color as blue, and font style as italic. So font style italic. And now I'll check if it works and will show you the output. So refreshing, and you can see each and every tag is affected, which means the content of the heading tag and p tag are affected with all the properties. So this is how CSS universal selector works. Each and every tag is affected. Moving towards the next selector in CSS, which is CSS group selector. And as the name suggests, in this selector, you first make a group of HTML tags using their original name. So you don't need to assign class or ID or anything to the HTML tag. You just use their name, make a group, and assign the properties. So here we have only two tags. So I'll make the group of those two tags, which is h2 and p. So you can create group just by writing name and comma in style tag, and then start assigning the properties. So here I have made group like h2 comma p, and I'm giving properties like text alignment as a center, color as red. And now we'll refresh the web page and you can see this is how group selector works. Now let's try to add one more heading tag and see if these properties are applied to that heading as well. So I'll use one more h2 tag and I'll write it as heading 2, and I'll go and refresh the web page and you can see it is also affected with these properties. So this is how CSS group selector works. Thank you for watching the video till the end. If you have any doubts, feel free to ask them in the comment section below. Also, if you enjoyed watching the video, give it a big thumbs up and share with your friends and subscribe to the channel.